Welcome to 20% Time, a podcast that takes you behind the scenes of Titan, a web consultancy based out of Chicago, but entirely remote and spread out all over the place. We specialize in Laravel, a PHP framework, which, if you're listening to this, you probably know that, but we're often pairing that with any number of JavaScript frameworks, libraries, and all sorts of other tools to get our job done. I'm your host, Dave Picking, and this week I'm joined by the wonderful Kristin Collins, a lead programmer here at Titan. Kristin, how are you?
I'm doing well, Dave. How are you?
Pretty good. For people who don't know you, who haven't met you, who haven't interacted with you online, who are you? What are you? What do you do?
Yeah, it's hard to interact with me online. I'm actually not on social media very much, so not in the Twitter sphere.
You're not on
Yeah,
Twitter all
so
day long?
no, no, never actually.
Might be a smart move.
Yeah, I thought that the social media sphere was getting pretty toxic,
Mm,
actually. So I just kind of bowed out of it, and I just kind of do my own thing now. And I do it old school. Call the people I want to talk to and text them. But yeah, so probably a lot of people don't know me. My name is Kristen. I've been a web developer for, I don't know, a long time now. Had a couple of jobs. Um, I started working for Titan after I sent them an email. I think it was Matt who responded to it. Love letter basically said, "Hey, you guys sound great and the way that I like to work. So could you give me a shot?" And they said, "We'll keep you in mind if we have a job." So I started working here, and now I'm a lead, and I've just been having tons of fun building, open source work and doing different types of client projects and building my skill set. So it's been a lot of fun.
that's great, and I love when people come on the show and they start with how wonderful Titan is. It's great. It really makes it sound like you're towing the company line. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Kristen's wonderful, and it's funny that you were just talking about how sort of a little bit of the work you do, because a part of doing that work for every dev is knowing kind of like your tool set. Like, what are you working with every day? And you're on the show this week because you want to talk a little bit about, I think, your favorite tools is generally the idea, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So most of the places that I've worked have their own set of software tools that they'll want to use for Git management
Yeah.
or their IDEs for code. But there's also a lot of tools out there that make web development easier. And especially if you're a freelancer, there's a lot of stuff out there that's free that you can just sort of get your feet wet with. So I wanted to introduce people to maybe some stuff they haven't heard before.
That's great. Before we start diving into specifics, I'm just curious about your general approach. Are you kind of, because some people, I probably fall into this category, I am sometimes always on the lookout for like, what's the next thing I could try, which of course then becomes a rabbit hole and you just end up, it's the problem with to-do lists, right? Every time you try a new app, you feel very excited, but that's just because it's a new app. Are you always looking for kind of new dev tools? Do you tend to stick with what works and only reach for something new on occasion, or how do you approach that?
So mostly my experience has been need based.
Yeah.
So I'll have a particular need for something and then go looking for it. I also do attend more conferences now in my career, so I think I'm exposed to more tools now than I have to go out and look for. And I sort of bookmark them and go, oh, that would be very useful.
Yeah.
But for the most part, this list is just compiled from a need. I was working on a project, I had a specific need, and I found something that I really enjoy using.
That's great. So where do you want to start?
Let me see. So I think that a really great one to start with, especially for new devs out there, is this dev tool called Color Mind. It's
Hmm.
actually a website, colormind.io, and it's a free service that basically lets you generate color palettes for a web application. So it'll generate all of your color palettes if you want to, but recently I was building something for a Titan blog post, and I decided to do it around the theme of Carmen Sandiego. And if anyone's popular with that, you know that there's like a distinct red color.
It's a
And I was
great color
able to,
scheme.
wonderful, right? And I was able to just pop in that red color as my main, brand color that I wanted, and it generated a lot of other colors that go well with it.
Hmm.
So I didn't have to spend a lot of time because I'm not necessarily the best at designing web applications. I didn't have to spend time thinking about what colors went with that red. It just kind of generates it for you, and it gives you a lot of good examples of how to use those colors in a cohesive way.
That's nice. Does it sort of keep in mind, this is my hobby horse, I apologize. Does it keep in mind like accessibility in any way? Because sometimes when you generate colors, um, if you're trying to pick a color scheme, there are some companies, including Titans, that sometimes fall in this trap. You have this fantastic, great primary like color for a brand, and it's tough to make work with white text or to make it accessible. Does ColorMind keep that in mind at all?
It does.
Excellent.
So it generates 5 different colors for you
Okay.
outside of your basic error text or success text. So
Yeah.
it generates 5 colors, and you'll have a dark brand color and a light brand color. And that corresponds with a dark text and a light text. So it'll pick up on, oh, if your brand color is dark, it'll go ahead and pair that with something that is a lighter text to sort of pop that out for accessibility. It's very nice.
That's very nice. Excellent. Colormind.io. Great. All right. That's a
And it's free
it's
to
free.
use.
Even better.
Yeah, it's great. The guy who made it, he also provides material kit downloads. So if you work with the material kit kind of framework or aesthetic, you can pay for those, and then you can download them, and then you don't have to do the custom configurations yourself, which is nice. I have done that before on one of my projects, but it's optional to pay for.
Excellent. It's a good first one. What else? So that's for colors. That's if yeah, because I feel like color, like getting a color palette. I'm sure there are some people listening to this when that's a part of what they need to do. That is very exciting for them. But I know that there are also quite a few devs listening to this who are like, I get very afraid when I have to do that. So that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, the next thing that I use heavily, that I'm actually using a lot in my current role right now is it's an application called Whimsical, and it's free for a couple of documents. And Whimsical is really nice because it has the structure to let you map out data, like database object models, I'll use it for. But they also have a lot of components for wireframing. It's not as robust as some of the other wireframe tools that people will use for professionalism, but especially if you're just trying to get things on a page and
Yeah.
figure out, the idea of where stuff's going to go, especially for a developer, it's really nice to just be able to play around with that. With the database model, you can put it directly above it, because all of their objects interact with each other. And so Marcus and I have been using this a lot on our current projects, because it's a multi-tenancy environment. And if anyone's worked on multi-tenancy before, you'll know that the database structure has to be really thought out ahead of time, because you want to make sure that all of your relationships are defined going into it. So being able to kind of drag those around and then also build wireframes based off of it has been really great. And like I said, it's free for your first 4 documents,
Mm,
and from what I can tell, the documents are endless.
right.
I haven't run into an issue with a page running out. Um, so it's a really great tool. And then if you end up, working in a team environment or wanting to share it, I think it's pretty reasonably priced after that.
Yeah. So, do you find that because sometimes when you're using a tool to sort of just get stuff on a page, some of them there's always a fine line between like how quick can you work with it versus how polished does it end up, right? There's always that kind of continuum of when you're trying to do wireframing at all. Do you find that with Whimsical, you feel comfortable enough like sharing that with maybe a client? Like, does it look okay enough for that, or do you tend to use Whimsical just for like, nah, this is just for me, my internal team, so we know what's going on?
I have shared
Yeah,
these mock-ups with the client. They didn't provide their own designs,
right.
and some people can definitely be turned off when something is not hyper polished.
Oh, that's a
So I
whole
think that
other conversation, Kristen.
yeah, so I do think you have to judge your client,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You have
yeah,
to kind of figure out what they're comfortable with. But with my client that I'm working with right now, they honestly, it's good to have like a base for communication.
yeah.
Sometimes if you just tell people, "Oh, I have a book," right? They picture a paperback book, right? Maybe their favorite colorful title. Other people might picture a leather back book with like a hard spine, right? So sometimes just having a picture that everybody can reference, even if it's not hyper polished, to just say, hey, this is what I picture an avatar looking
Right.
like, right? Or this is what I picture a sidebar looking like. It really helps drive a conversation forward and helps you build out that functionality faster.
For sure. My phrase of the year is that words are tricky, right? And so anytime you can have something where you have a shared way to understand what a word means, to because like even if it's something like, okay, we need to build a login page, there's actually a little bit of there's some hidden complexity there, and there are assumptions, right? And if you say a login page, and whether it's your client or if you're a dev at an internal company or stakeholder, um, they hear login page and they're thinking, oh, well, I can log in with maybe Google and I can log in with this or, and I can have all this stuff versus no, it's like a box
Right.
with like some fields in it. It's like real base, getting to defining like it's to me what I've enjoyed about watching you use Whimsical is like it really helps sort of it's a very convenient way to have an excuse almost or have a really good reason to say, let's make sure we're on the same page when you say this because here's
Right.
the visual thing that I mean. And it's certainly more polished than me scribbling something on an iPad. So
Absolutely. That's the key.
all right, Whimsical, great choice.
Let me see. Oh, so I will kind of promote one of the paid services that I use, I
Yeah.
guess. This talk is not sponsored by anyone, by the way, but if someone would like to, that'd be great. There is this great tool that I love that I found when I was freelancing, and it's called Avocode, like avocado, but Avocode, and it's fantastic. So basically, what it does is it allows you to import pretty much any image or design file you want to. Like it'll take anything from a PNG to a full-blown, PSD design file. You import it, and it allows you to perform inspections on those images, just like you would an actual editor, right? And that may sound like, okay, yeah, but Photoshop can do that stuff too. Well, Photoshop can be expensive for a freelance developer. When I first started with Avocode, I think it was $13 a year. They have upped their price since then because they've gotten a lot more robust features and they
Yeah.
really deserve it, honestly. But it's a lot cheaper than some of the other options out there. And what I really enjoy about it is that it also lets me inspect PNGs. So when I was freelancing, I would get a lot of people who would just send me, a phone picture or, they draw something out. And if you have, a Photoshop program, you can only accept things in a certain format, right?
Mm,
But with Avocode, you can take pretty much any design file that people were already working with and you can bring it into your environment.
sounds handy.
Oh, I love it. Like I
Yeah.
said,
It feels
I
like one of
use it
those.
all the time.
Is that one of those things you just you find yourself reaching for often?
Often.
Yeah.
Not so much working at Titan.
Mm.
Titan kind of gives us, again, I'm plugging, but I'm not
We
getting paid for this.
look, we love
Um,
Titan. Well, I
but
mean, you
yeah,
kind of
so,
are getting not getting
oh
paid
yeah,
extra for the podcast, but it is
yeah,
20% time.
right. It's not sponsored, but yeah. Um, yeah, so Titan kind of gives us a lot of available tools. We have a designer on hand, Noemi. She does a lot of work, as far as getting, the right colors or
Right.
telling me how to do something. It hasn't really been an issue, except for I think on one project I did have to pull it in just because the client was really specific about spacing, but they only gave us PDFs,
Mm.
right? And so
You
a
love getting
PDF,
PDF. Yeah, that's super helpful. No, I
they're
mean,
like,
it's better than nothing, but you're not going to
yeah,
get pixel perfect accuracy out of a PDF.
and and that's what they wanted,
Yeah.
right? And so that's when I found myself going back to Avocode because it has the little ruler function on any image. I was able to import that PDF, get a ruler, draw the line, and get the appropriate pixel length between it. So it was pretty great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
All right. What's up next?
Let me see. Well, another handy free tool that's out there
Mm.
that I was using is called Ico Moon. And what it does is it will create a font file for you out of images and SVGs. So SVGs can be super handy for displaying icons. I know we use them a lot. Um, but honestly, unless the framework really is set up to handle SVGs, sometimes it can be really hard to get those SVGs in line with text or to get it to transition to a different color when you're hovering over the state. Also, if you just have a PNG version of something, obviously that's not going to work for an icon, right?
Yeah.
So Ico Moon is a free service. They provide a lot of their own icons for free, but you can import any type of icon file, like I said, PNG, SVG, and it will generate a font file for you based off of that. So just like how Font Awesome has their own font for their icons, you can generate your own and just import it, and then you would use your icons the same way.
Yeah, that's really handy at a place. Again, we're plugging Titan, like Titan, where sometimes, especially if it's a project where we have Noemi on it, where she's often like generating custom icons for a client for whatever reason, right? Well, typically we love Tailwind. We'll often use Tailwind and we'll use hero icons or we'll use whatever. But sometimes you need something custom that's similar or in a different style. And yeah, that does sound kind of handy.
Yeah. And so just like with a font, right, it
Yeah.
helps you create responsive sizes for those icons. It helps you change the color a lot easier if you're doing it like inside of a button with text. You don't have to update, you don't have to write different styles for the SVG versus the text because that font file is now text. So it's pretty great. And I've used it recently on some of my own projects as
Yeah.
well. And it's one of those things I just go back to time and time again. Oh, one of the other things I introduced to a couple of people that I work with at Titan is it's a software called Shift. And it's not Laravel
Not
Shift,
Laravel Shift, which we love. We love.
which I love, but it's something completely different. It's an app manager. So it's like one single app that houses other apps. So it lets me
Mm.
switch between email, Slack, Trello, pretty much everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm one of the few devs in the world that doesn't have 100 tabs open on her screen. I like to keep things very organized and I like to be able to find it quickly. And so Shift is something that I pay for every year,
Yeah.
but it's like $100 a
Right.
year. It's super worth it for me because like I said, I can keep everything organized kind of in, a list view. It also helps with notifications because I know what I haven't read or what I have read based on the application itself. I don't have to keep toggling back and forth. I just have all my notifications in one kind of purview. And it saves me from having a million tabs open at one time. So I love it. I use it every day,
Yeah.
personally and professionally.
No, no, that's great because I wanted to ask you, because uh, some of these awesome tools that you mentioned, they almost sound almost like a little under the radar. You don't really hear people talking a lot about them. Do you have things like whether it's Shift that you can kind of consider your essentials, like your day-to-day things that you rely on? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming you have an IDE or a text editor you rely on, but are there other things that are kind of like, yes, these are my day-to-days?
Yeah, so I mean, Shift is a big one.
Yeah,
It's my email client manager, it's my Slack manager, Trello board manager. Like I use it every day personally and professionally to
yeah,
manage all of my stuff. Um, I use, I mean, I think everybody uses GitHub now. That's
sure,
probably a
yeah,
bad thing to say,
that's okay.
because they're competitors, but um, all my personal projects
Yeah,
and professional projects are in GitHub. I've used other services, but I always go back to GitHub just because of its ease of use. Um, my favorite IDE of all time is PhpStorm.
Is that what you use
Um,
currently though?
yes,
Okay,
I use it for everything. I even try to use it, for projects that aren't PHP based, which is ridiculous. I have to download different JetBrains products, but what I like about it is that I do like doing a lot of things manually with my project work, and I
mm,
like having that terminal toggle. But there are things that I don't like having to set up in every project, right? I don't like having to set up PHP unit for every single project to run my test coverage, right? I don't like having to manually run a linter, right, when I'm saving my
yeah,
files. So there's stuff that IDE takes care of. I also had to use it recently to track my Git history, and it has some really great interfaces for Git management and working through your branches. I use it to resolve merge conflicts because even though I am even though it sounds like it would be a lot of fun to just scroll through a whole file and look for hash code, right? I mean,
Sounds
that sounds like
great.
a great time,
It's a great time. It's a great use of your time too, I'm sure.
right? But I love in my editor that I can just click the root project folder and
Mm,
say, and go down to the Git tab and be like, oh, hey, I need to resolve my merge conflicts. And it will pull up all the files for me that contain merge conflicts and specifically pull it out for me. And there's a lot of Git managers out there that will do it, but I like having it directly within my
yeah, you
IDE
want it
because,
all in one
again,
place.
I don't like a lot of windows. I don't like a lot of tabs. So I like just having it there.
I was gonna say I've got this mental image. You've got like Shift on one side of your screen, maybe like very small because you want it to. But then you've got PhpStorm taking up a lot of your main screen.
Yep, definitely. And then my secondary screen is used for like my browser just to display the application that I'm
Right.
working on and some documentation. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other day-to-day essentials that you can't live without?
I mean, I use my terminal a lot. It's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I'm a dedicated Mac user now, because I can't do PowerShell, and I will never do that again in my life. But I'm very used to the
Yeah.
terminal. I use Homebrew a lot for my customizations. I do a lot of file structure stuff through my terminal as well. I've configured my Bash RC profile recently, so I have some nice coloring to my terminal and styled. So that's one I use all the time.
So this is maybe a bit of an aspirational question, I guess, but like, are there any tools that you use, or either whether it's on occasion or regularly, that you kind of wish were like a little better, or like that you kind of wish had a feature that would just make your life so much easier?
Yeah, so okay. So maybe I'll throw somebody under the bus here
We'll
because
we'll
I
do it
haven't
gently.
we could do it gently, yeah. So what I really what I really want,
Yeah.
in its entirety, what is to have a like kind of a library of code that I use a lot. And I'd like for it to be multi-language.
Mm,
So you like I take all my notes in Bear, which is in
yeah.
Markdown. So I could tag it that way, but it doesn't copy and paste well. You know what I mean? Like if I'm if I'm building something, let's say, a component in Tailwind, right? You
Yeah.
have the Tailwind playground, but I'd like to save that locally so that, maybe in my IDE, I could like save a component and then pull it in,
Mm,
or um, or just have some sort of application that I could quickly navigate through that I could copy and paste because there's a lot of things that you end up reusing a lot of the time, specifically based around users, right? Like I was saying, displaying avatars or
right.
displaying default avatars, login or authentication stuff that you use all the time, roles and permissions. I would really love to have my own library of reusable components that are in every language. Currently, I haven't found that.
Right.
Um,
Integrated into PhpStorm, of course.
yeah, that would be ideal
Sure.
if it was integrated into PhpStorm so that I could just insert that in a function or look it up very quickly.
This could be our next 20% project. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We always need
Oh, maybe I should build that for myself. Yeah.
uh sure, we have we don't exactly need more open source projects to Titan, but I mean that what sounds like it'd be very useful actually.
I would love it, and it would be nice to be able to share it with members of the team so that you kind of have this collective. It would almost be like a code library, right?
Yeah,
Where you
yeah,
have
yeah.
this like collective way of checking stuff out or putting stuff in, kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Interesting. So I kind of started with a sort of almost philosophical question about like your approach to tools. I want to kind of
Hmm.
come back to something like that, which is more like not your approach to tools, but sort of I think one place where people, I'm one of these people, even though I'm not a dev, get stuck is kind of like, first of all, like sorting through, or also just like getting stuck with like, I don't know, like over that hump of, well, this kind of looks useful, but I don't know, do I really want to learn this something new or whatever? And it sounds like you have your tried and true tools that you stick to, but obviously like you reach for these very specific things when you find that they solve a problem. Like, do you find that you have to like kind of work to get over that hump of like, well, do I really want to do this? Do I want to change my workflow? Or is that, is it just kind of like, hey, if I need it, I need it, and I go from there? Do you kind of get, I guess basically, do you get like bogged down in decision fatigue or in kind of like, well, do I want this or do I not want this? Or is it pretty straightforward?
I do, and
Yeah.
sometimes I try to trade out for things to like optimize it even more, or sometimes save time or save money. I've tried different IDEs than PhpStorm a lot. I've tried a lot of different
Oh,
IDEs over my career.
I think that's
Um,
like that's a rite of passage for most devs, right?
and, sometimes you work for companies and they have specific
Sure.
IDEs that they pay for and they want everyone to use the same one so that you can set up your configuration.
Right.
As far as that's concerned, I think that, you know, I'm now a proponent of find what works best for your workflow and just stick with it and learn how to use it well. Um,
Hmm.
I have gone through, I still work on configuring PhpStorm to be like the best,
Yeah.
I recently just figured out how to zoom in on text using my scroll bar. That used to be something I did manually. So, yes, I'd say I
Yeah.
still do that from time to time. Um, but for the most part, I think that's why I wanted to come on and kind of talk about these
Yeah.
tools
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well, because I do know that people have a hard time picking them.
Hmm.
And, I kind of wanted to say, hey, this is stuff that I use every day and try it out. So maybe that gives you a little bit more confidence to try it too.
Yeah, that's honestly a great way to kind of sum up what we're talking about here today. And I don't even know if I have any great questions for you aside from basically asking. So we talked about some under the radar tools. We talked about some everyday tools. Um, we're a Laravel shop heavily. Are there any Laravel specific tools that you use that you enjoy using that you'd like to plug? And if not, that's totally fine.
I mean, we sort of mentioned Laravel Shift
Yeah.
when I was talking about the different shift. I got introduced to Laravel Shift at Titan.
Yeah.
Previously, I had done all the upgrades manually. And oh my gosh, it's so worth the money. I think it was like $12 to upgrade this one
Yeah.
application we were doing, and it blew my mind how fast and easy it was. I was like, $12 for that? Sign me up. So as far as Laravel is concerned, I love the ease of using Shift to upgrade the application. Um, Let me see, what's some other stuff? Tinkerwell.
Mm.
I've used Tinkerwell before. Um, I'm still not, it's not something I reach for every day just because I'm generally within an application. There's very few times that I'm thinking of, oh, I wonder if I can hack on this Laravel function and I don't already have a Laravel application set up to handle the
Right.
request.
Right. Right. Right.
I used to use it more when I was freelancing because I would try to help people on Stack Overflow and answer questions. And in that context, it's sort of helpful to just kind of have an empty environment so
Oh,
that you can
right.
plug in that code
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
run it
Yeah.
and then see what the problem is. Um, but it is a good one. I remember when I heard about it at a Laracon because I had been looking for years for something to just, help me out with that. So that's a good one.
Yeah, I never thought about it in the context of like if you are trying to help somebody because we've talked about Tinkerwell internally at Titan certainly before. I never thought about it in the context of sort of helping like that Stack Overflow use case, which is really interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. Or if, you have someone on a team with you or someone sends you a question, hey, I'm having a hard time with this, plugging in the code makes it super easy. So that was nice.
Well, all right, Kristen, is there anything else about tools that you had on your list of stuff that you wanted to talk about, or anything else that you wanted to bring up?
Let me see. One fun one
Yeah,
for
fun.
everybody.
Let's end with a fun one.
Let's end with a fun one.
Yeah,
So, the thing that you utilize a lot when you're creating, applications is Lorem Ipsum text, right? Everybody has heard of this, Lorem Ipsum. And, it's just filler text. Well, I like to take it a step further because I'm done with Lorem Ipsum text by itself. There is a Samuel L. Jackson Ipsum out there. Just Google it. And it generates quotes from Samuel L. Jackson from his famous movies. And I find that so much more fun than just general Lorem Ipsum text. So I go to that one a lot. And it's on my list of things to try to integrate that with the Faker PHP library so I can just fake Samuel L. Jackson text.
that was. I was gonna say try to figure out how to just get that right in PHP Storm, but no, right into Faker would be interesting. Yeah.
That would be great. Yeah. You guys that are maintaining it, watch out for that PR from me because I
They're gonna look
use
at
that
that and
all
they're
the
gonna be
time.
like, "Wait, what?"
They're going to be like, we are no longer a family-friendly company if we integrate
Well,
this
you
PR.
might need a family friendly toggle or some sort of boolean to say yeah, give me
Yep.
all of it or meh. Let's
Give
pick
me the
from
cleaned up
a
shit.
smaller pool of quotes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Kristen, thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. And I thought I had heard of every tool that we use at Titan, and there are indeed some that I had no idea about. So this was educational for me. Thank you so much. And yeah, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me on and letting me just, talk about the stuff that I use. It's been fun. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
All right. Can I? Nope. And I'll